Welcome along to Tuesday's Off the Ball, and we are very much focused on events in Poland this evening. Nations League Group B, Ukraine versus the Republic of Ireland, a 7:45 kickoff. We have live commentary with Stephen Doyle and Vinny Perth on the way. 53106 is the text number. We are at Off the Ball on Twitter. Arthur O'D is here in studio. Hello.
How are you, Joe?
Very well. Richie McCormack is with us. Hey, Richie.
Man, how are you?
We're very well. Just pause for a second because we're going to check in with match commentator for the evening, Mr. Stephen Doyle. Stephen, hello.
Good evening, Joe. Good evening, lads. Good evening, everybody.
So we have our team, 7:45 kickoff in Poland against Ukraine. Number of enforced changes. Interesting team.
It sure is, Joe. And I can tell you that there's a competitive debut for the Meath man, Dara Lenihan, which will have Richie very happy, I'm sure. And also
on the Royal.
And also a first competitive start for Dara O'Shea since he injured his ankle that time away to Portugal last year in the World Cup qualifier. So I'll just give you a run through the side. It's Kelleher in goal with Collins, O'Shea and Lenihan at the back. And then it looks like, I'm just pulling out the other team from last week, Joe. Beg your pardon here. Sorry. So, yes, it is Collins with O'Shea and Lenihan as the back three. And then it's James McLean, who does skipper the side tonight, winning his 94th cap this evening. And then it looks like Brown on the right-hand side. And then a midfield three of Colin Molumby and Jason Knight. And then it's Scott Hogan playing up front alongside Troy Parrott. So it does look like the 3-5-2. I'd imagine it will be Collins anchoring that back three as well. With Dara O'Shea, of course, he can play as a right back and perhaps will be better on that right-hand side of the three.
Okay, so similar shape to the Scottish game, not surprisingly. Dara O'Shea, Dara Lenihan, Nathan Collins, that back three. Alan Brown continuing at right wing back. James McLean, as you said, captains the side. He was very good against the Scots, so he continues. And then that similar midfield, Josh Cullen with Jason Molumby, the energy Molumby. Jason Knight, you would think, without the ball, will very much join in with Cullen and Molumby. With the ball, he might push on a touch as he did against the Scots. And then once again, two strike partners, Scott Hogan of Birmingham City in alongside Troy Parrott. Didn't have a huge number of options otherwise, Stephen Kenny. I suppose there was the Hendrick dilemma. That was about it.
Yeah, and I should say as well, Joe, three changes obviously from the game at the weekend, with of course John Egan expecting that baby along the way some stage. Shane Duffy is suspended and Michael Obafemi injured as well, so they're the three that miss out, with O'Shea, Lenihan and Hogan coming in. But as you say, it is down to the bare bones. Probably not as bad as Ukraine, but it's a very inexperienced Irish bench there as well, with the likes of Festi Ebisele in there. But you've also got the likes of Hamilton, Keane, O'Leary. So, not a huge amount of striking options. Scott Hogan does give you that, I suppose, the option of holding up the ball and trying to get Troy Parrott in and around him, possibly. He hasn't scored yet for Ireland, of course, the Birmingham striker. So it'll be interesting to see how he gets on. But I suppose with just the three changes, you've got a bit of consistency there. Anyway, Dara Lenihan is 28 years of age. He's a very experienced campaigner, even though he is winning his first competitive cap. In fact, I was just kind of looking back at his season with Blackburn earlier today, and it was interesting reading Tony Mowbray's quotes about him last December, and he was just saying that he is a super footballer. He says he's got a really good eye for a long pass. He's got great vision for the game, and also at just 6'2", he said even though he is just 6'2", he towers above players that are actually taller than him, just because he is such a physical presence in the box. So I'm looking forward to see how he gets on. And of course Dara O'Shea, who really was the man of the moment last year, and I thought he really acquitted himself well when he played in the Premier League for West Brom, even though they had a pretty poor season when they went down. A bit like Collins at Burnley this season, he was a bit of a shining light despite his team getting relegated. And he showed that, against the likes of Liverpool, against the likes of Manchester City, he's well able for international level football. And he showed that as well against Portugal. And unfortunately, I think it was just his eagerness and his determination that really was the cause of him fracturing his ankle at that time. But look, I'll join the chorus of praise for Collins as well. I thought even though the Armenia game was pretty poor watch and it was disappointing, after a couple of early mistakes from him, I thought he was just superb. Given that, now we mightn't get the same from him tonight. If he does play as the anchor of the back three, we mightn't get that Collins option of getting forward and perhaps distributing the ball from just inside his own half. We'll see how that develops. But I think it's a really interesting side.
And Stephen, just before you go, on the Ukrainian front, Yarmolenko starts. There's no Zinchenko, or there is a Zinchenko, so it looks like more of a frontline team if Zinchenko and Yarmolenko are in. I'm not as familiar with the rest.
I'll just show you there, Joe. It's they basically made 4 changes from their win against Armenia at the weekend. So dropping out for them, it's a third different goalkeeper actually in their third match of this Nations League, with the very experienced Andrei Pyatov replaced by the inexperienced Dmytro Riznik, winning his first competitive cap for Ukraine. So perhaps something there for the Irish players to take a couple of long shots at him, test him out early on. He played 45 minutes in a friendly match against Bulgaria, and he plays for Vorskla Poltava in the Ukrainian top flight. Not a side known to many people, I'm sure. The Everton left back, as you mentioned, Vitaly Mikalenko replacing Mikhailo Mudryk. So that means Zinchenko then will move to the left wing from left back to allow Mikalenko drop in there. And Shaparenko looks like he's going to push up from the left wing into the corner forward position, Joe. Viktor Tsigankov, who scored with that free kick in Dublin, and Roman Yaremchuk are replaced up front by Artem Dovbyk, who's been on fire for Dnipro, and Andrei Yarmolenko, who you mentioned there, who was released by West Ham, for whom he scored a couple of big goals at the end of the season, and of course against Scotland as well in that playoff match. And as you mentioned, Joe, he gets the armband as well. And just to mention as well, I should say, Joe, just 4 players in the Irish team: Kelleher, Collins, Cullen and Knight, and 4 off the Ukraine team: Mikalenko, Sidorchuk, Dovbyk and Shaparenko are surviving from that Dublin game last week.
Okay, very good. So just for us to get our heads around this and what we're expecting this evening, this Ukraine team, this is more in line with the team that played against the likes of Wales and Scotland in their big games.
Yeah. As you say, look, it has been well flagged before the game as well. They've had their injury problems and also an illness that broke out in the camp. He's only got 9 players on the bench rather than the full complement of 3. So they are at the bare bones, but the bare bones they have left are their leading players, really. So the full team, it's Riznik in goal. Right back is Karavayev, and then Zavarini, Matvienko and Mikalenko as the back 4. Then it's Malinovsky, Sidorchuk and Zinchenko as the midfield 3, with Yarmolenko, Dovbyk and Shaparenko up front.
Okay, lovely stuff. Thanks for the time in. Stephen Doyle on commentary alongside Vinny Perth. Arthur O'Dea, as I said, is in studio. Turns out the hipsters were in just one place this weekend. Should have known. I should have known when Nevin was on last night saying he was at an amazing book festival, the Boris House Literary Festival, that of course that's where you were when you took a day off yesterday.
Yeah.
Did you take the day off yesterday because you were just coming down from the heady heights?
Oh, well,
recovery day after
it was
the madness.
nice. It was nice just to dwell on it all.
He, being serious for a moment, was effusive about the Boris House Literary Festival. So
it's unbelievable.
Talk to us.
We'd booked our tickets, I want to say, back for the June 2020. So that's kind of how long we've had them, and they've rolled over to now. So that's kind of how long it's kind of been in the works. It was amazing. I'd never been to it before. I had a few friends who we went with who had. And I saw Pat on Friday night with Roddy Doyle. Fascinating.
Nice.
It's like 50 minutes, kind of a few questions from the floor at the end. Just fascinating.
Roddy Doyle interviewing Pat?
No, it was kind of, I forget who the interviewer was, but it was just the two of them. And obviously Roddy Doyle, I know he was on the show before, Chelsea fan. It was brilliant. It was like, you really, with the sense of almost everything you kind of went to there, it was always kind of a case of just half an hour more, just a little bit more, because it was so just engrossing. And I suppose it's a very interesting environment that, I suppose, like any gathering where people are there for the same thing, you do feel there's a great sense of just community there at it generally. Everyone kind of is there for the same reason. There's always something else on when you're going to something, so if you don't really want to be there, you'd be somewhere else. And
is this a big operation? Would there be different choices at each given hour, or is it generally a main stage that you go to?
No, so there's about like, say, 6 or 7 different places, say, some small, some kind of a few regular, but there's always just, the real challenge of it is to just find the thing you want to do, as opposed to, and it's almost choosing what you'll be willing to miss.
Who else was there?
Fintan O'Toole was a big presence. He was across, he was fantastic. Patrick Radden Keefe, guy who wrote a brilliant book. I forget the name of the book, but about the Sackler dynasty and the opioid crisis in America.
Oh yeah.
And he also wrote that book, Say Nothing, about, I think, Gene McConville murder in the North.
Is this with the Michael Keaton opioid?
Yeah, I don't know if it's from the same book, but the same thing.
Similar ballpark.
Exactly.
That would be interesting.
It was fascinating. It was so interesting, and they did a great way of pairing different people together. They stood out. Sorry, and the other thing that definitely stood out on the Sunday was the poet Paul Muldoon, who most recently worked with Paul McCartney on that book of lyrics. So kind of, I suppose, he worked with them for about 5 years on it, and getting in like 1 degree of separation from Paul McCartney. It's like, Paul Muldoon's no small deal himself, but you are kind of talking about, good God, this is incredible. Just hearing the little, I suppose, look, if anyway a fan of the Beatles, and I suppose as you will be, I know you thoroughly enjoyed Get Back, so it is kind of, I suppose, grand 60 years later or whatever, but it is working with the same person, talking about these songs. That was a treat. That one felt almost a little bit like, God, I can't believe he's doing this. Just the insight.
Jealous, man. Is this an annual thing?
Yeah, I think it's about 15 years going.
Oh, wow.
It's remarkable. It's really...
Gotta go.
And to be fair, like, without any disparaging things, like there's arguably a lot of years before now, there's arguably been a bigger name, if you know what I mean, like a bigger headline. Like, it was absolutely brilliant. It's amazing the people they get. Really, really incredible.
Sold.
Yeah.
Well, listen, I was at Duran at St. Anne's Park, so we all had our culture over the weekend. We all had our culture.
What? You went to a gig?
It was a free ticket.
Of course, the bleeding was. Yeah, but like, even still, like, that's wow. Okay.
What would you say to me about Duran?
I'd say they're responsible for some of the biggest and well-crafted pop songs of the 80s, and occasionally actually the 90s as well.
See, I never know what he's going to say.
No, it's impossible.
Honestly, if you would come out with that or equally something completely withering, I would not have known the difference. So that's interesting. Do you know what's a lovely thing about going to that concert? So obviously, for a generation, it was like a wonderful dose of nostalgia and all the rest of it. So they're all, I'd say it's late middle age kind of territory now. They won't mind me saying, I'm sure.
No, that's okay.
We were amongst the younger crowd there. We got tickets. People couldn't go, and kindly threw them into a WhatsApp group. We said, yeah, go on. We're near enough to the area. But so wonderful excitement, obviously, and friends coming together who may or may not have seen each other in a long time. But when certain songs came on, transformed into 20-year-olds again in their behaviour and their mannerisms.
It's brilliant, isn't it?
It's an amazing thing. Yeah,
it's brilliant. Like, I remember being at for, like, if you're talking about an age profile that's kind of up in years, I remember being at the Who, or the remnants thereof, in Marley Park a few years ago now, God, and you'd see like 50, 60-year-olds and maybe even above, like, completely transported back down to being 18, 19, 20. And similarly, you'd see some of I remember there was a kid of about 7 or 8 on his dad's or his granddad's shoulders for the duration, who knew word for word, like, album tracks off of Tommy and Who's Next. And you're just going, well, this is just, it's brilliant when you see multiple generations kind of coming together like that and enjoying it almost in the same way. The
other thing that was hilarious was nearby, I'd say a handful of clearly kids who'd been indoctrinated in the car were now in their mid-20s and were like pumping out every word, like there with their dad going ballistic to Duran, so it was kind of a fun thing. Somebody says only an OTB member would go to a festival to see Fintan O'Toole. I take that as a compliment.
I mean, he's a captivating public speaker.
Why would you not listen to what he has to say about things? Is it a good thing or a bad thing that we're not even talking about that from the team we thought had turned a corner a few months ago? 5 of the back 6 are missing tonight. For any other team, would this not spell utter crisis? Bazunu, Coleman, Doherty, Duffy, Egan. Only Jimmy McLean has survived the apocalypse. That's true. I mean, he absolutely, Stephen Kenny, has built a strength and depth. Now, the criticism would be that actually everyone's of a certain similar level, but
they're all much of a muchness.
There's a lot of them. There's a lot of them. So again, if you're tuning in, we have live commentary this evening. Richie's about to start his Newsround, but the team is Queeving Keller in goal. Is he your number 2? Is he number 1?
Yeah.
Is it like 1.5? That's a hell of a backup if he's a backup. Darragh O'Shea, Darragh Lenihan and Nathan Collins are the back 3. Alan Brown continues right wing back. James McLean on the other side. And then it will be a midfield 3 again. Josh Cullen, the energy of Malumbi. Jason Knight will help out when Ireland are out of possession, which, to be fair, could be for a fair proportion of this evening's game. And then up front, the boy Troy and Scott Hogan comes in. Obafemi injured. We should really start the Newsround, which is with thanks to Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. Richie, not such good news on the other Irish front this evening.
No, the Republic of Ireland under-21s will have to navigate a 2-legged playoff if they're to play first ever European Championships. Jim Crawford's side lost 4-1 away to Italy in their final group game in Ascoli, meaning Ireland must content themselves with second in the group. The draw for the playoffs is going to be made next Tuesday. The actual playoff played in September. Denmark, Iceland, Israel, the Czech Republic, Norway, Slovakia and Ukraine, all potential opponents in that one.
Yeah, real pity. Well beaten. Can't really have any complaints. There's other football this evening?
Yeah, elsewhere in Ireland's group, one game already completed. Scotland came from a goal down to win 4-1 away to 10-man Armenia this evening. The last remaining place at this winter's World Cup will be decided over the next couple of hours. Costa Rica are already a goal to the good against New Zealand in Qatar. That goal coming from Joel Campbell, now plying his trade in Monterrey. The winners of that one will land in Group E along with Spain, Japan and Germany. Australia earned their place in Group D last night via a penalty shootout win over Peru.
Who was the Duran Duran of your childhood, Arthur? Who did your parents indoctrinate you to know the lyrics of, even against your will, in the car?
Oof.
I'll say now I spent too much time listening to Daniel O'Donnell in the car.
I'll tell you what, no, I was spared that.
Which, still not over.
My father would have been big enough country western.
Okay.
So a lot of Tom D. Hall, a lot of Johnny Cash.
Well, Johnny Cash, though, I mean, you can live with that.
Perfectly fine, I can live with it. No, I've no problem at all.
There.
And it has, it stuck with me. But they were generally quite good for letting us, like, yeah, a lot of dust in the turkey as well.
No shame there.
No.
Yeah, he was big for a time.
He did.
It's huge.
Richie.
Misha, Joe Dolan, the mighty Joe Dolan, who was, who was essentially a family member as well. My uncle managed him for decades. So,
wow.
Yeah, like just obviously knew a bunch of him, and much like Arthur, like my dad was a big country fan back in the day, and that would have been played a lot on the radio, and at the time you're kind of like, oh, duh, you put on something else. But instead, the old man that I've become, of course, I'm just like festooned with a bunch of country compilations here on my iTunes. So yeah,
Joe Dolan, Johnny Cash.
Sorry,
Daniel O'Donnell.
My father loved Joe Dolan. I should bring that up. I think he saw him, he estimates, about 30 times.
Right.
Yeah.
Here we go.
So that was in the playlist.
There is no show like a Joe show.
We have our Irish squad to go to New Zealand. Any big news?
Yeah, 5 uncapped players in that Ireland squad. Leinster trio: Kieran Frawley, Joe McCarthy and Jimmy O'Brien, joined by Munster's Cian Prendergast and Jeremy Loughman of Connacht in that 40-man panel. Robert Balakoon, Andrew Conway, Chris Farrell and Ronan Kelleher all miss out through injury. Head coach Andy Farrell says Ireland's first tour in 3 years, remember, is of huge importance.
Well, we've not been before. That's a fact to me. You know, our last performance against them, or any good performance that you've seen over the last 18 months, 2 years, we need to be better than that. It's different. It's different over there, and that's why touring for these lads is so important. We've missed it. You know, we've lads on over 20 plus caps that's never toured. You know, so walking around Auckland or Wellington or Dunedin, it's not like walking down Balls Bridge and people winding the window down and saying how good you are. You know, this is completely different. This is proper international rugby that doesn't get any better, and it's exactly what we want at this moment in time.
Yeah, Brian O'Driscoll going to be on Wednesday Night Rugby tomorrow, so we'll pick his brain on things. Arthur there just watching Andy Farrell in his press conference. The guns were out. You're impressed.
He's a big man.
Impressed with the physique.
He's a big presence.
Seen him in person?
Never.
Big, tall man.
Yeah.
Lot of presence.
That league background, though, isn't he from?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did he win something like their big award, Man of Steel or something at 17 or 18?
Yeah.
I mean, good God.
England captain, I think, at 17, 18.
The name alone.
Man of Steel. In a non-ironic way.
Oh, I love a bit of league.
So we have Champions League draw. Good draw for Rovers, is that the sense?
Yeah, decent. Before I bring you that, Joe, another football line tonight in a breaking one in the last 20 minutes or so. Darwin Núñez completing his move to Liverpool, costing an initial €65 million. That could rise as high, or 75 million, that could rise as high as €100 million. A 6-year contract for the Uruguayan at Anfield. That deal just done and announced this evening. But as you mentioned there, Shamrock Rovers given a pretty favourable draw in the first qualifying round of the Champions League. They'll face the Maltese champions Hibernians over 2 legs, with the first leg at Tallaght in early July. Sligo Rovers will play the Welsh side Bala Town in the Conference League qualifying, while Derry City have been handed a tie with FC Riga of Latvia.
Spare thought for John and his son Cormac. We're sitting here depressed, hoping to listen to you talk about sport, having missed the Killers in Malahide tonight due to catching COVID.
No!
Your gig guide talk really isn't helping. Oh, that's
chances.
Brutal. Funny, we were walking out of Duran Duran. We were chatting on the way back, walking back, saying, well, who would we go to that would get very giddy
Okay.
About, seeing, and suddenly I was like, God, we're so old now that going to see the Killers would bring back the college years. I'd lose my shit, like.
Oh God, yeah.
Well, otherwise, I guess it's, I don't know. I think the first gig I went as a teenager, like with my mates proper, was like probably the Stereophonics or something. But I don't know, would I quite go back to that now?
That's Wayne Rooney's favourite band, isn't it?
Yeah, he has a tattoo.
Yeah.
He has that, one of their albums, Just Enough Education to Perform. He has Jeep tattooed on his leg or something.
If you don't know, Richie definitely will. They played Slane, didn't they?
Oh, they did, yeah. Yeah, they were that big.
That's incredible.
They were huge.
Slane. I can't remember if they were. I think they were headliners at the time.
Tell you, I'd wander back to see David Gray for nostalgia, actually.
He did a massive couple of gigs
tour
in the Street Arena.
Yeah.
Do you know that? He did huge numbers.
There was a lot of love for. I mean, I'm under no illusions. He is of a level, but there'd be a lot of it's nostalgia. That's what Duran Duran was the other night. It was just people reliving moments in their lives,
Isn't White Ladder still hilariously high selling though? That his album, like it's.
Well, it was in every house in Ireland, wasn't
This country that broke him,
Yeah. Anyway, John and Cormac, that is so tough. That is brutal. So the Killers won't be the same without you guys. We should bring a last story or so, Richie, if you can.
Yeah, Serena Williams has been handed a wild card for the main singles draw at Wimbledon. The 40-year-old hasn't played since returning hurt from her first-round match with Alexandra Sasnovich at SW19 last year. Williams will warm up for Wimbledon by playing at Eastbourne next week. She's going to be playing the doubles there alongside Ons Jabeur. While Russian and Belarusian players will be allowed to compete at this year's US Open, the US Tennis Association says players from both countries can compete under neutral flags at Flushing Meadows in August. Wimbledon, of course, banning representatives of both countries from playing there this summer.
Bryson DeChambeau finally.
Yeah, we should mention Nicole Turner, by the way, winning a bronze at the World Para Swimming Championships in Madeira in the past half hour or so. But Bryson DeChambeau has become the first LIV golf recruit to admit his move is about the money. The 2020 US Open winner, along with Patrick Reed, will join the Saudi-backed tour at their next stop in Portland at the end of this month. DeChambeau is at Brookline preparing for this year's US Open, and he told the Golf Channel that cash was one of his primary concerns when signing on with the Saudis.
So it was a business decision first and foremost, and that's all there was to it. It's given me a lot more opportunity outside of the game of golf and giving me more time with my family and my future family. So for me, that was the decision.
Was the business decision basically money driven? Is that what you're talking about?
There was a lot of financials to it and a lot of time as well. So I get to have a life outside of the game of golf as well.
You want to play on the PGA Tour again?
I would love to. It would be an honor.
He's an odd person.
What's the crack with that? Sorry, he needs more time, just fewer events now.
Yeah.
Okay.
He talked about he wants to open a driving range in Dallas.
Right.
That's one of the things he wants to do.
Is he in his 20s?
Yeah.
Right.
At least he's bloody admitted it. He's
Yeah.
like the first one of the 40 odd so far to just go, do you know what? It was
Business.
cash. And it gives me time off.
Getting 100 mil up front.
Good God.
And whatever.
Right.
And he could win a lot on that tour in the next couple of years. So, I mean, it's it's not an unstraightforward business decision, is it? I mean, it's a lot of money to turn down. Vincent Company, by the way, is the new Burnley manager. I should mention that. Very final point. Someone wants to know, what was Fintan O'Toole talking about?
Talking about everything. Talking about his latest book. We Don't Know Ourselves. Talking about the
You read that,
Northern
didn't you?
Ireland. Yeah.
You liked it?
I thought it was very, very good. Most of it, I thought it was brilliant. And then, anyway, there's some other parts now for tonight. But he was talking about Northern Ireland, and
Going well.
it's going well. Yeah. And that kind of veered into Brexit as well. But I feel he might have done one other thing as well that I missed. But yeah, he was a big presence around the place.
Okay, very good. Fellas, we're out of time. Arthur, thank you.
No problem. Thank you.
Richie, thanks very much.